Today we'll be discussing text shadow. Much like box shadow, text shadow allows us to apply a shadow directly to text. So let's go back into our editor, and within style.css it is blank. So let's go to that H1 tag that I've referenced right here, and for now let's set a big font size of 100 pixels just so we can see it on the page. Next, I'm going to give it a nicer font family. Here's a quick tip for you. Many people, if you're using something like Helvetica, they'll do it like this. Helvetica with a fallback to Arial, which is almost identical to Helvetica, and then a final fallback to a default of sans serif. However, if we were to set this to sans serif alone, your browser will automatically choose the most appropriate font, which will be Helvetica or Arial. So this is a way to save some characters. Next, I'm going to align the text to the center, like so. There we are. Now, I want to apply a nice text shadow to our text. So let's add it now, text shadow. And much like box shadow, we can specify an x-axis, a y-axis, a blur, and a color. So let's set this side by side, as we did before. And now can you see? We've applied a very ugly text shadow. But you can imagine back in the Photoshop days when you would learn about how to add fire, a flame to text, you can do this exact thing with text shadow. Much like box shadow, we can stack these by using a comma. And then I can say 10 pixels to the right, 10 pixels down, 5 pixels of blur, and we'll make that green. And now if I reload, you can see we have a terrible red shadow and then a terrible green shadow. But you can see, if you're a good designer, you can create some really awesome effects. Now you want to be careful with text shadow as a whole, but one of the most common uses is to simply add a sort of stroke, an underline for the text. Let me elaborate. Let's come back, and to the body element, I'm going to apply a background of kind of a grayish color, like so. Next, I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to apply a text shadow. It's not going to go to the right or left, so it will remain in the center, and I'm going to push it down by 1 pixel. Now for the blur, I want it sharp, so I'm going to set 0 to blur. And for the color, I want it to be the color of the outline I desire. Let's set it to white. Now if I reload, hopefully you can see this in the screencast, but if I zoom in, we've applied a very subtle underline to our text. Now technically it would be called a shadow, but the way we've specified the dimensions, we get kind of a neat inset look. If you cannot see that on the screencast, let's make it an ugly color. And now can you see this effect? Just a very subtle and sharp underline for our text. So let's bring this back to white and set the background color to a darker grayish color. And now you can definitely see that taking shape. And this is one way that you can create some neat effects with text. And in this case, it looks like maybe there's light shining from the back of it. And you could even use something like a transparent gradient behind it to help convey that maybe there is a light source behind this text. But yes, if I can give you one tip is when using text shadow, do not be obnoxious about it. Make your shadows subtle and realistic.